Hi, I'm Madison. Four words I would describe 2020 as are pandemic, recession, and Zoom calls. Who do I think will win the election? I think Biden will win. I think he's more progressive. And I think the way everything is moving, we're gonna go towards healthcare and things like that. So I think there's a good chance that he's gonna win. That being said, I think Trump has a large following, so I wouldn't be that surprised if Trump won again. I see a lot of Trump flags and I see a lot of Biden stickers everywhere, so it's pretty divided. Why do people hate Trump? Well, people don't like his political views, so I suppose that's one reason. Also, he's said some pretty crude things about people. Just the way he talks about people kind of isn't always good. Also the way he's handled some situations, especially with Black Lives Matter, not really speaking out much about that, and his presidential bait, not condemning white supremacists. It's not a good look, especially when we have people literally dying. So that would be a reason to hate him, that he's not supporting the rights of every citizen. I don't particularly like him. I don't really think he is going to do the best job as a president, or has. Okay, thank you.
What is your political ideology?
I would say starkly leftist.
What are your feelings on Trump?
I think he's a fascist bastard.
Why don't you like him?
Why don't I like him? Well, as a proponent of democracy, I feel that his actions in the White House has degraded the integrity of American democratic ideals for the past 5 years he's been a political entity.
Can you give a specific example? Sorry to interrupt.
He uses fear-mongering tactics with his demographic. If you witness the Trump cult, I'm going to say it's a cult, they do have a cult mindset. They follow a demagogic leader with utmost authority. Like, look at the RNC this year. It was the first time in a couple hundred years, I feel like, where the Republican Party has just said, we do not have any party ideas. We are following one man entirely, which is dangerous. You know, there is no foreign policy change, or there's no changes in foreign policy. There's no ideas that they're adopting about how they want to run the country for the next 4 years, especially because they're in power. It's just, we are following one man. That name is Trump, and that is it alone. Watching the RNC was very scary because they opened up with, liberals are the enemy of the state. We will defeat them, against this backdrop of American iconography, which just sounds and feels so much like fascism. And it rings a lot of alarm bells, both in the political rhetoric he's saying and just the ideologies that represents. It's terrifying, and unfortunately it's a downside of democracy that con men and men of false pretenses, or people of false pretenses, can worm their way into systems of power, or positions of power. It's very unfortunate, but that's the reality of it. So I hate him. I hate him because I think, like I said, he's an enemy of democracy, and a lot of other democratic states right now are acknowledging that, and I am baffled that we in the United States are having a hard time recognizing that.
And finally, how do you think that this election is going to go? As in, who do you think will win, and what do you think the effects of that are going to be?
I think it's really up in the air. I think there's two most likely outcomes. I think Joe Biden will win, just because he's polling really well in swing states. There's a lot of talk of Texas turning blue, which, we'll see how that goes. But I can tell you right now, either Florida or Texas go blue, Trump can kiss this go by, this campaign goodbye, and he will face many, many legal problems getting out of this. His debt will catch up to him. And mind you, he is something like what, $1 billion or some $1 million in debt or something like that. I forget the exact number.
I think it's $4 million in debt.
I think it is as well. I wasn't gonna double down on an answer just because I wasn't sure.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah. But he is in debt to an extraneous amount, and he will be facing many civil lawsuits when he comes out of the presidency. And but anyways, I think the second most likely outcome for this is that the Senate will flip, and he will be impeached on the spot. I think that's the most likely outcome, especially because, like, going back to the RNC, when the Republican Party comes out and says we are following one man, that intrinsically makes it harder for Republicans to win local elections. How do you identify with Trump? How is you a Republican trying to run in a congressional district that is up in 2020? What do you say? What do you say in terms of, are my ideals in line with Trump? Are they not? If you're a senator right now, what do you say to your state where he may not be popular with Republicans? Kentucky, West Virginia are having very similar problems. Trump is making it very difficult to win local elections. And it's very likely that there will be a very, I don't want to say very heavy Democratic Party majority in the HOR in the Senate, but I think it's very likely because, and this isn't, I'm not spewing this by the way, this isn't political jargon. You can go back to the 2018 congressional elections and see the same thing. You can see many traditionally red states that have voted blue governors in the past 4 years. He has made it very hard for the Republicans to win local elections, and those repercussions are going to be felt for the next 20 years. So I think you can expect, if he does not win, he will be impeached, indicted, and the hole he has dug himself is slowly closing in around him.
What is your political stance?
I'm a liberal.
How do you feel about President Trump?
That he is ruining our country.
Can you give a specific example?
No. But I know he is.
And finally, how do you think this election will go?
Fortunately, I think he's going to win.
What do you think will happen after he wins? What will he do?
Deport anyone who's not a citizen and continue ruining our country.
Fantastic. Thank you. Hi, could you describe your political opinion?
I'd say I'm moderate. I like to see what's fair. Try to find whatever is fair to most people.
Very good, very good. And how do you feel about President Trump?
I think he's very divisive. He tends to cause a lot of drama, pandemonium, especially in can I start over? I know what I want to say, but
How do you feel about President Trump?
I think that he's very divisive. He's strong and bold, but mostly in a bad way, especially with the Twitter, because it's very unprofessional, and I don't know too much about all the different things he does in the office, but I think that's mainly overshadowed by how angry he seems all the time. I think that if he was to be more calm and was peaceful, bringing people together instead, I think that maybe his presidency could be better.
Do you think he's a good president?
I don't think so. When there's a child growing up, I remember when I was younger, I was looking up to Barack Obama, and I was like, wow, he seems so strong and confident, and he was a very good speaker. And I'm just thinking about the next generation. They're growing up and they're looking at someone who's cursing and calling people racist names, and just, it's so unprofessional. I just don't agree with that as a president. I don't think that's a very presidential or professional thing to do at all.
How do you think this election is going to go, and what do you think will happen after the election?
I'm not sure how the election's gonna go. I think it's gonna be very hectic. I think there's gonna be a lot of clashing. I don't know who's gonna win. It's really hard to tell because like I'm part of like my family on both sides. They're both very Republican. They're both pro-Trump. So it's like I can almost see like no one's gonna vote for Biden. So I'm like, I don't know, but that's just because it's a lot of my family is. But I know that's not generally how the popular opinion might be. I think that it's gonna maybe even spark like a civil war. I really hope not, but I just think that whoever wins is gonna be heated on both sides.
What do you think will happen if Trump wins?
If Trump wins, I think people are gonna be very angry. Like I know the first time in 2016, everyone was just kind of really sad. Everyone was like, was very depressed, and now I think it's gonna be sparked into anger rather than sadness because a lot of people are just fed up with him. So.
And what do you think will happen if Biden wins?
If Biden wins, I'm kind of afraid that Trump supporters will use their amendment rights and like take up arms, and I'm afraid of what they would do because I know that like at least on the more left side, a lot of people are against guns, so they might not use deadly force if they do protest and if it does get brutal. Because I think there's brutality on both sides, but I'm just afraid of the gun aspect, people banding together and causing violent riots.
That makes sense. Thank you. That's all the questions I have for you.
Hi, my name is Nick. I am a left-leaning, progressive liberal Democrat. I asked for what I think of Trump. Nothing good. I think that he is a perfect mixture of idiocy and evil. I legitimately cannot think of a single redeeming quality of the man. And I think he's gonna lose. I think he's gonna lose pretty badly not because I don't think there are a lot of Americans that actually on some level agree with him or like his policies. I think that if he could shut his mouth and get off Twitter, he'd be cruising to re-election. He says the quiet part loud. He gives up the game. Republicans have spent years trying to keep their racism hidden behind dog whistles, but he doesn't do that. He just says it up front, and it turns off a lot of people. And I think a lot of people are actually starting to see through the dog whistles now where they didn't before. And I think it's gonna tank him, and I think it's going to devastate the Republican Party in this election. But I also think that he's been planning to lose. He set it up. He's been trying to make this election seem invalid, and he's going to claim a hoax, of course, when he loses. He set it up in 2016 to do the same. But I also think that he's fundamentally a coward, so he will angrily tweet, he'll hold rallies, he won't actually do shit. He'll be out of there when January comes around.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm going to be answering these 3 questions. So first thing, my political stance. I'm officially a registered Democrat, but I don't really identify as a Democrat anymore. I guess technically that's what I am. I don't know that I identify as like a leftist or a liberal either. It's not that I'm moving more toward the right, it's just I don't know that I agree with all of the points in all of these, I guess, like communities. So yeah, political identity is hard. Weird thing to think about, I guess. My stance on Trump, what I think about Trump, I don't like him. I think he's a pretty awful human being, and I think he has done a lot of damage during his presidency. But I think the conversation about like him being the worst president we've ever had, like ignores a lot of other like horrible things that even presidents that we like have done. So I think it kind of ignores like the very, I guess, like structure of the American presidency and also America, like the role that it plays on the international sphere in general. I think like thinking about who the worst president was it's a weird question, and there are so many metrics to measure that by. So yeah, I don't like Trump, that's the short answer. How I think this election will play out, I really don't know. I know I will be voting for Biden. I'm not super excited to. My cat's collar is being a little weird. I'm not super excited to vote for Biden, but I think right now the only choice I have is to vote strategically, you know, and not out of my own desire. And so my hope is that we can just win back the White House. But to be honest, I'm really not sure how things are going to go. I'm not sure if Biden is going to win, and I wouldn't be surprised if Trump got a second term. It's not really a great answer. I really don't know how things are going to play out. I'm scared that I'm being too hopeful the way that I was when, you know, it was Hillary's turn. So I definitely don't want to be in that same mindset again. But I'm also, obviously, I'm not excited about Trump getting a second term. So it's hard to say. I hope that Biden will win. I don't think it will be by a landslide by any means, but I think if he does win, maybe it'll be by a small fraction. I think that'll be at least a step in the right direction. So yeah, sorry that didn't really answer the last question. Okay, I think we're done. Bye-bye!
So politically, I'm a progressive. I best identify with candidates like Bernie Sanders and AOC. I think the most dangerous part about Donald Trump's presidency is that he normalized ideas of white supremacy, sexism, xenophobia, pretty much any phobia in the book. And not only is that dangerous for marginalized communities, he also set the bar for the Democrats to be, if we're not Trump, we're much better. But I also feel that seeing all of this come out has woken up a lot of younger voters to thinking that we need to go beyond just not being Trump. We need to become a better America. So I hope that the election swings in Joe Biden's favor. But what I do believe is that a lot more progressives will be elected into Congress and hopefully make this change go a lot further.